Greetings, humanity, and welcome to Europa Natural Law. And I'm Nemo Jones, reporting for Beauty from Devon, Albion, Britannia. And if we go around, everyone can introduce themselves quickly.
I'll go from the top left. Derek Bartolacelli, out here in California. Mais oui, but living in France, breaking stereotypes and all that jazz.
Hi, I'm Wukan Kempfer from Germany.
Hello, I'm Jasper Huis. I come from the Netherlands, especially from the part of Frisia. So I'm here in my hometown, which is called Bolsward, and it's actually named after the Bull constellation, the Taurus constellation. So it's all built on mounds, so that makes it very special for me because of what the history that's tied into this place, and that I'm from here. It's really like an honor. So also an honor to be on the show for the second time. Last time I was in Czech, and I was not feeling very well. So I hope this time will go a little bit better. So that was it for me.
Okay, I'm another Dutchman. I'm born in Amsterdam, but I've been living in France for quite a while now. So French became my best language. And I'll say it again. I've been in the Rudolf Steiner School and raised in the Sikh ashram. So that's the background. And I'm really happy to be amongst you guys again.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here with us. This is like the 13th show. We've done 3 months. I've had the same introduction, and I was just thinking today, all right, I'm actually going to freestyle an introduction. So the show's called Europa Natural Law, and we're doing it because, or at least I'll speak for myself, I'm doing it because, as far as I'm concerned, natural law, or to be more precise, the understanding of natural law is the solution to the ills of the world. It's the thing that we need to understand as a species. And it's the thing that we don't understand. And I say to people, people say, oh, what are you into? What do you do? And I say, I'm into natural law. That's my thing. That's what I want to talk to you about. And most people say, what's that? They've never heard of it. And then even when you explain it, it's kind of a difficult subject because the thing is, it's so under layers. It's so hidden away under layers. In a way, it's so basic. It's a thing that children can understand, but adults struggle with, and really it's about, a huge part of it, if not the central, the most important aspect of it is the relationship between morality and freedom. And the reason that it's so difficult to focus on, or it's so little considered, is because, as I said, there's layers of obfuscation and layers of ideology and layers of Hegelian dialectics, i.e. different competing ideas where the truth is probably actually in the middle between the ideas, but culture forces you into one extreme or the other, so you can't actually meet at the truth in the middle. And this is what we're talking about today, is this idea of, basically, it's called worldview poisoning. So it's the idea that people, as we're conditioned as children, in a civilized world, in a sane or rational world, we'd be conditioned with rationality, with the understanding of objective morality, but that's not the world we're in. And so instead what we're conditioned with is very bad ideas that take us very far from the truth, ideas that almost block the way to the truth, mean that we can't even understand the truth when we're looking straight at it, or it sounds ridiculous to us. This is called worldview poisoning, and there's so many different aspects that it can take. It's an absolutely huge subject, but that's what we're going to start looking at today. And I will, on that note, hand it on to whoever wants to pick up on that.
Oh, go for it, if nobody minds. Because we always got to take it back to first principles. The first cosmic law is mentalism, which is the main target for this, worldview poisoning, the mind control, and deception, and manipulating people, and to do what exactly? What is the modus operandi, right? And we look at these false figures of authority since antiquity, right? The monarchies, the aristocratic, and the kakistocracy, if you will, and obviously heavily influenced and dominated by religion, especially in Europe with the Vatican, the Catholic, and the inquiries and all that shit, the Crusades and whatever the fuck. What drove that? It was people's, beliefs and their worldviews of, life, and what, people in this particular group believe, right? And, beliefs get people killed, and but we have to keep in mind that we can avoid those things by just understanding that there's a huge difference between knowing and believing, right? And we've been fed so many lies, whether straight up or disguised. And one definition or term that I want people to really consider with just everything in regards to this topic and just information in general is the word paltering. And that's kind of like peppering in lies within the truth, I guess, if you will. So
Can you repeat
sounds
the word, Derek? Sorry, what's that word?
paltering, Paltering. Yeah, paltering.
Okay.
So how do we manipulate people? We gotta feed them some of that good stuff. It's like a poisoned apple, right? I think it's Snow White. It looks so juicy and golden red delicious on the outside, but what's on the inside? Worms aside, right? So yeah, cosmic law principles and the modus operandi behind controlling someone's mind is to eventually, and if it works, inevitably control their actions and have a huge influence over their the trinity of consciousness, the thoughts, emotions, and actions. And the emotions are what's kind of driving your likes and dislikes and your passion and your fears and this and that, which is the driving force behind your actions, right? So that's one way of self-mastery, is like wielding that magic, alchemizing your emotions, having more control, and being more of the causal point to our effects in life, understanding the law of attraction, causality, and all these things. So yeah, we we live in a world, like the thumbnail says, from the movie They Live, the old Rowdy Roddy Piper. Like, just put the fucking sunglasses on and see the world, without the fucking filters and all this stuff, right? Because yeah, there's so many different ways that the propaganda, whether Bernaysian or whatever the hell, right? And all these things, and like the shiny white smile, with lies through their teeth, and all these things, the salesman, the snake oil salesman, and all these things. There's a lot of profit being made for these things, and they're justifying certain actions and corruption by, oh well, we're creating jobs and whatever the fuck. So people have a this worldview that, oh, like these companies, they're trying to do the right thing. They're, supporting communities. They're creating jobs and all these things. Yet, behind the scenes and all this stuff, whatever the fuck happens, right? And pushed under the rug and whatever. and people can theorize on whatever conspiracy they want about it. Of just wow, more than one person are breathing in together on a specific agenda or action, or whatever. If you break down the word conspiracy, and people have just bad worldviews because we're not taught how to process information properly via the liberal arts and sciences. Take it to the trivium, quadrivium, and these things. And if we really understand just all these things more objectively, our subjective view is going to be much more healthy. And this is how you resolve the paradox within the polarities of things, and like the law of polarity. And in the Kybalion, regarding the Hermetica, there is, all truths are but half truths. And what they mean by that is people's subjective truths could be all but half, because truth, capital T with, no plural, just truth. They're talking about objective truth, and that is whole. It's not a half truth, right? So it's up to the individual with their subjective truths and worldview perception to align as much as possible to objective truth, and that will reconcile or resolve the paradox of people bumping around entangled in the Gordian knot of the clusterfuck of unconsciousness, as I like to call it, because pick your flavor of politics or religion and all this, and oh my god, well, how is your God doing? What's your relationship with your God? And how is that God getting along with all the other 100 gods out there? Like, what the fuck? So we can have fun with these things, and I don't know, like put a mirror to people in a more objective lens for people to see how hypocritical, contradictory, and silly some of these things are, and we have to take it back to just language in and of itself. How was it created? We learning about etymology, and just especially we're all speaking English, what comprises this language and how many other languages are infused with it. And then you got the prefixes and suffix, well, so that's all I'm going to say right now. But basically how I see this, like the biggest issue with the worldview poisoning, is that humanity is sold on an idea that we're a lot smaller and limited than what we actually fucking are. And we're multidimensional beings having a human experience. Yet, like here in 3D level, the these false figures of authority and whoever's writing the fucking biblical scriptures and whatever the fuck, paint a picture of us kind of like we're depending on saviors to fucking help out, because we can't help ourselves from it's causing self-inflicted suffering upon ourselves and shit like that. Like, come on, y'all. Like, think about it. Mentalism, right? Hermetically sealed shit, yo. Who's next?
Yeah, definitely. That's the word you said, paltering. I instantly thought of it sounds like altering, poisonous altering, and yeah, that's one way of like worldview poisoning we especially see on TV, where they like weave in lies into the truthful information very, very skillfully. And I think that one of the most important points on worldview poisoning, in my humble opinion, is the fear and knowledge aspect of it. I don't know who it was, but somebody dropped a pretty brilliant quote of somebody into the chat that knowledge conquers fear. So if you fear something, learn as much as you can about it, so you know what to do and how to handle it. And I think that is especially important, like when you are in this world, this universe, that you really try to get to the root of the quintessence, if you so will, of the laws of the cosmos, what the real creator, the big C creator, has put in place. Like Derek already mentioned, like the Hermetic principles, and this is very, very important to really understand, to get this, like the own perspective right into, like, onto all this outer aspects that we can perceive. And I think that worldview poisoning is especially easy to do with people that are ignorant and fearful. So to really, like, in Germany, there was a time where the topic of sovereignty was very, very, like, popular, and like all the people, like the big talking heads, and so spoke about that topic, and nobody mentions to, like, it has to start with oneself. You have to be sovereign in yourself, in your actions, in your thoughts, in your, like, routines and everything, for yourself first. And from that, like, when many people do it, when more people would really follow that example, we would get into real sovereignty and into, like, real autonomy and real freedom, because we have to have, like, freedom in ourself first to, like, bring it to the outside. And so it is with knowledge and, like, our view of the world. And yes, there is a lot of bad things happening in the world, like wars and hunger and all that stuff. And I think it is very important to point it out, but not to weaponize it to like induce fear, but more to, like, make somebody aware of this problem, so more people could, like, focus their attention onto it and maybe do something about it. And I think that especially this dark period, at like this point of the year, that is called the season of death by our occult loyal opposition, is a very good time to really, like, have a good look into oneself, to really, like, see how much our worldview and of ourself and of our neighbors, of other people, of this world has been poisoned. And to make this, like, poisoning aware is one of the first steps of healing oneself. And by healing oneself, we heal all the rest as well. And I think it's very high time that we get started. Like, more people really get started with this.
Thanks. Jasper or Paran, do you want to step in?
Hey, gang.
Well, it's for me the topic on like worldviews is quite broad, because it includes our whole mindset. And what struck out when I was thinking about it for me as well is that I like to draw out my own worldview, and I've seen examples of like poisoning worldviews of friends of mine, so I can relate it in that way, and to some extent, I wonder like how much of my own worldview is still poisoned, like even subconsciously or unconsciously, and I think that that's a right attitude to have, to be checking yourself if you still have poisoning worldviews. So maybe later we could talk a bit about some examples of what world poisoning, worldview poisoning actually is, like drawing out examples. But for myself, like I'm still building my own worldview. I guess many people are. But for me, it's really um, like the way that I see the world is through an understanding that everything is alive. So it's like you could call it animism, but it's more sophisticated than that, because if you just say animism, people think you're just primitive, or you're stuck in your own development of like being a child when you go through an animistic phase, understanding that everything is like one, that an oceanic feeling. So people always like put things down like that. So I think also that often there's a lot of arrogance in people's worldview, that they're like, oh, I know how things are, because I've done so and so. So this willingness to question your own worldview and being aware of it, because we acted out in the world like unconsciously, anyways. So yeah, like what makes a poisoning worldview? That would be my question to the people around. But I explained last time what the etymology of the Ood Da and the Valdra, which is the name for God in Frisian. It's also Wareld, just world in Frisian. So our worldview, if you go back to the previous episode where I explained that, um, you can understand like the how we see the world is very much through this way of animism, that there is we don't know what God is. We cannot really articulate it, but we can look around and ask our parents like, oh, where do we come from? Well, we come from our parents and their parents, as I explained like last time. So through that you can understand where you come from and what your worldview is. But I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but or I'm just monologuing it here. But um, these are just some thoughts that come up for me. But I don't know if I have that much to say. I don't have a high authority, but it's just my genuine opinion on it.
It's all good, brother. And yeah, like you said, just real quick, and then I'm Brum. Love to hear what you say, but like we're all refining our worldviews. There's always things to learn, and things that apply to our lives, and all this stuff. Yeah, what's good, yo?
Yeah, indeed, Jasper. It is a process. It's like what Mark Pastor defines as the apophatic inquiry. Um, Apocalypse actually means taking away veils. So if you want to have a grasp of reality, it's like the process of taking away veils after veils. And there's a saying that says, well, lies are to truth what noise is to the signal. So if you want to hear the signal, you got to get rid of the noise. Well, it's just an um,
Analogy.
analogy. And so, yeah, we often have to give each other the best service we could give each other is just give each other a reality check and to adjust our worldview the best we can. And I have three examples of where I've been surprised that yeah, I was kind of getting a little stuck into a worldview, and um, I'll go through them real quickly. Yeah, I went to this little gathering that was like maybe 15 years ago, and they were talking about alternative economies, and so I was asking them, oh, you mean about those local currencies you could use and everything? And they said, no, 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 I'm talking about because those local economies they're still based on well, they replicate the debit and credit system. And oh, okay, well, what are you aiming for? Oh, everything for free. It's like, wow, wow, thanks. I lost, and I lost grasp of that. The end goal that eventually we could get there, because there's this worldview poisoning that is the one of scarcity versus abundance. And that's a really tricky one, because who is going to risk, just giving without expecting in return, like the equal amount of his investment. I mean, that's going to take a while before people agree on that state of mind. Well, there's another one, of course, the belief in authority, of course, is that, well, total anarchy. How could that be? Could that work out? So, okay, there's the examples of we need the roads, and we need, who's going to build the roads and everything. And oh, we need a captain in the ship. Uh, you need a leader when there's war. Uh, and yeah, just to remind ourselves that yeah, there's a prerequisite, and it's going to take. It's the prerequisite to outer anarchy is, of course, inner monarchy. That spoke pretty much to me when I by encountering Mark Pastiel's work. So to everything, there's a prerequisite, of course, and yeah, well, inner monarchy means you really absorbed the objective morality versus the generalized, rampant relativism, which is not only with good or bad, that's really um, blurred distinction between good and bad, but also beauty and what's ugliness. It just applies everywhere. It's like, okay, it's my oh, and the world poisoning. Um, so how can one imagine that we uh, become inner monarchs with the limits and knowing the difference between right and wrong, and setting limits to what we should and should not do. And then, of course, that also speaks to the another worldview poisoning, or Hegelian dialectic. Is human nature inherently good or inherently bad? You have like the French philosopher, I think Rousseau. He speaks to the idea that yeah, humankind is born good, but society fucks them up. I'm sorry for the slang. And another would say, I think it's Hume, or some other philosopher, and he says the opposite, of course. Uh, that human beings are inherently bad, and that society is gonna uh, make them good somehow. And well, and back to the real definition, or the real aspect, that both extremes of the dialectic aren't true, or both are, or we're both. But the idea is that the human nature is the idea that we are programmable. So that comes back to education. There's a lot to do there, of course. And the last topic was, because since I was born a Sikh, I've been a vegetarian all my life, so I have no uh, merit to have um, made the effort of changing my habits, and struggling with uh, competing or adversity with my family, and struggling with addiction, because eating meat is some kind of addiction, um, uh, you need this outer source, preying on animals uh, for your existence and your energy. And of course there's just this big polarization. So if you advocate for total veganism, um, well, it will be received as very extreme or very radical, and then instead of having the well, a positive reaction, people are like, no, I want, okay, I agree that um, animals are not farmed in the proper way, but I still want to eat meat. And I remember Mark Pastor talking about those three N's. Oh, it's not to eat animals. It's natural. It's necessary. And what was it? Natural. necessary, and normal. Yeah. Well, but in the end, there's a fourth one, which is, oh, I don't care about these three other ones. Okay, I agree, but I just like eating meat. So it's like they can suffer all they want, but my pleasure comes first. So that's somehow an honest confession of a satanic mindset. Me first. And yeah, talking about animals, it's interesting to come back to, because the very extreme kind of movements that kind of plays well uh, that create a counter productive effect. I can't remember all else. LC says movements where they're filming in the streets. They show those images of horrible treatments on animals, and their ideas. Oh, and they are tagged as anti-specist. So that's also another worldview. It's the idea that, oh, there's no difference between animals and us. Well, there is, but the real definition of the right is that we don't have the right of life and death to another sentient being. Oh, well, the full definition, I'm sure everybody agrees on, is it's an action that doesn't start a harm to another sentient being. So the idea that sentient beings are having emotions, and you could tell that animals are suffering or not, I guess. And also, people also forget that butchering animals all day long, well, you create a psychopath. And I think in America, they're not supposed to assist in the juries, because they will go, oh, just kill him, because I mean, empathy. Slowly, empathy is they become devoid of empathy, because they have to protect themselves. Otherwise, they just kill themselves, I guess. Anyway, I went through all these three examples, and my conclusion is that all views are perceived as extreme, radical, very radical solutions, but it's just that it is a process to implement them, and it has to go step by step. That's the only way. I mean, we're gonna the job's not gonna be finished in this lifetime. We're gonna have to come back and back and back, get the job done. And my friends, I'm through.
Thanks. I think yeah, the thing about free stuff, that's such an interesting, like everything being free. I mean, Gerard Winstanley, I don't know if you guys know of him. He was around a few hundred years back in England, and that was one of the things he said. It's like, well, we could just carry on doing exactly what we're doing, but just take money out of the equation and just carry on. It's such a great sort of visualization. And the thing is, like I think Jasper was saying, what is it that makes something poisonous? I would say it obscures an accurate understanding of the truth, and it destroys the imagination. I think those are two things that I was thinking while people were talking, because if you can't imagine a world, let's say a world of an agape world, a world of universal love. If you can't imagine that, then you can't approach that. And so the thing about these questions, like whether it's anarchism, free, a world without money, these kinds of things, it's like, oh, yeah, that's ridiculous. Well, what's ridiculous about that idea is that no one's imagining it. That's the only ridiculous thing. So I mean, I am imagining that world, and I'm not just imagining it, I'm talking about it, because the thing is, we're in this terrible deluded age, a mad time, and so I don't mind being a crazy person in a crazy world. That's what I want to be. I want to be the idealist who sees far you know, who can see a completely different world, no matter how far away it is, no matter how many lifetimes it takes to get there. It's irrelevant. You know, the ideal is the point. The principle is the point. You know, are we living morally or are we not? Well, we're not. We're a million miles from moral. So that's what is mad about the world as it is. So if things that I want to talk about and that I want to imagine seem mad in a mad world, then so be it. Well, not even so be it, then great. That's perfect. You know, that's how it should be. So because, you know, the worldview poisoning is really, it's the thing that it puts boundaries around the possible. You know, it limits imagination, it limits freedom. It's the bars of the cage, you know. And you know, to give it another really clear example of worldview poisoning, you know, and it's like one of the most basic there is, you know, is external authority. You know, and we've talked about it before, but there is no external authority. It is an illusion. You can say that someone has authority over you, but you are saying that. You know, that's so it's an illusion. It's a decision that you are making. Therefore, you are retaining the authority in that interaction. In truth, and you know, Larkin Rose gives so many great examples. Has so many great ways of explaining this. You know, and this is one of them. It's like, well, okay, I'm not going to do. I'm a law-abiding citizen. You know, okay, well, what if the law says something so ridiculous that you say, okay, actually, that's unconscionable. I can't possibly do that law. I can't possibly do what I'm being asked of now. Well, then you're if you agree that that's possible, then you're not actually a law-abiding citizen. You're just playing a game of abdicating your authority. You know, and it's basically like a sort of sub-dom, you know, game that humanity is playing, and has been for millennia. You know, we pretend to submit and they pretend to dominate, and that's the act. And people are so comfortable in it because they don't have to take responsibility. They think they're not responsible. Well, they are responsible for every single thing, you know, and they can't hand that away, but they want to, because, you know, and this is another great truth that is hidden by this worldview poisoning, and it's already been mentioned, is because, you know, we're scared of our infinite potential. We're scared of our infinite value. We can't really handle it, you know. We know how far away from it we are, from activating it, from manifesting it, and we're living in shame, you know. Really, we're in shame collectively, and we're sort of, there's this facade of civilization that kind of makes us feel okay about it, and then of course there's the facade of material comfort, you know, and success, you know. Oh, I'm a success in the world. Well, great, you know, you're successful in the madhouse, you know. It's like, come on, you know, get the real work done. Look at be the one that can see through, you know, be one of the crazy people in the madhouse that can see the way out, that can see the bars and is saying, okay, look, how do we deal with these bars, because they're actually totally illusory. Yeah, so that's, I'll hand it on from there.
Yeah, I'll segue that because, you know, over here in America, people are sold on the American dream. But what is it that George Carlin says? You know,
Mhm.
in order to get
Wake
that
up.
dream, you got to be asleep, right? Whatever. The American scream. I'm just kidding. But, you know, like, hey, first you got to get the good grades. Then you get to university. Then you get the good job. Then you get the money. Then you get the car. Then you get the girls. And then you get the house. And then that's life. That's you know what I mean? Like, and what's in between all that? And where's the actual self-discovery and all that stuff. And speaking about worldviews, what about inner worldviews? Going back to the Hermetica, as above, so below, as within, so without. Law of correspondence, like how do we view ourselves on the inside? Do we understand there's a universe within us, like as with all, we're all fractals of creation, right? And what was it, Jasper? He said something to that effect in regards to animism, and tying it in with what Prom was saying. Well, technically, according to animism, everything is a sentient being or whatever. Even speck of dust. It'll transmute its energy into something else, and it's just life goes on, right? Isn't it a beautiful thing? Shit. So bad that these weird stories of creation and poisoned the wells of wisdom in regards to the true original teachings, back in the days of Atlantis. But people have a poisoned worldview about those times through ostensible writings of the Zachariah Stitchin and people that be bitching or whatever, talking about how, ooh, the Anunnaki, they created humans just to make us go fetch their gold for them. That's not how the fuck it works. And that story could have been more allegory as opposed in regards to the actual gold within us, right? The alchemy, getting the lead out to get that true golden consciousness and the life force energy that they love to loosh the fuck out of us, And so we point the fingers all around, yet we have to point it back at us as well and take responsibility for our actions that were based on, bad perception of, not necessarily objective truths and moral um, uh, values, standards, whatever. And so back to Paltering, there's even, Thoth, who was a great deceiver and part of the reason why Atlantis fell. And he stole some of this ancient knowledge and wrote the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Some of y'all heard about that. Of course, there's, great truths up in there, and the Kabbalion, hinges off of those. And there's nothing wrong with that. Except in the Emerald Tablets itself, there's a good amount of fucking bullshit in there to raise some red flags. But we gotta respect these authorities. And, the aliens wrote this. We gotta trust them, right? Or what, what I mean? So people, it's unfortunate that we really don't. We have this cosmic amnesia. We don't really truly understand our place as human beings in the cosmos, really. But let's bring it back to 3D, right? And 3D is a wonderful place. People have this spiritual elitist snobbiness, like, oh, I can't wait to go to 5D and all this shit. Like, shut the fuck up. What are you doing here? What did you sign up for? Do you remember? Do you remember? Are you remembering yourself to cause that beautiful ascension right here and right now, like heaven on earth type of shit? It's not heaven out there and you can't wait to scrape by this lifetime by the most minimal sins as possible, and then we're gonna get to heaven. No, you fucking create that shit right the fuck here, and it starts within yourself. You got to be the master builder of the temple, the church, the synagogue within your soul, right? So yeah, I've had to re-educate myself and rewire my brain and my perception on things and how I view myself and my placement in the world and all these things, and accept my limitations and accept the fact that we're only around in this incarnation for give or take 100 something years. But even today, you see this mentality of like, you're old as fuck when you're 50 years old or some shit, or even younger, because people watch so much sports and they see all these athletes retire when they're like 35 years old. What, you think they're gonna crawl in the cave and die in 10 years? What the fuck, like and these are just some of these limitations. And Prom, you mentioned something great in regards to scarcity, and there's a great presentation by Bob Tuskin. I think it was in the Free Your Mind conference, either 1 or 2 or 3, I believe. But it's titled "Scarcity-Based Mind Control," and he goes over specific things that, humanity has been, led down the garden path, or, or even more draconian roads of things, of how, we view ourselves, and, oh, this world is such a finite stuff, and like even time, and, Chronos, take it to Saturn, right? But yeah, in regards to time, I mean, shit, it's so Gregorian these days, like whatever happened to following the moon cycles, right? And then I guess that might correspond more to the zodiac precessions or something like that. So yeah, things to consider, and just consider your value and what you make of the time you have on this earth, and what is your relationship to this earth. How do you view the world, like Gaia, Mother Nature? How do you view it? How do you treat it? What is your relationship with her? Things to consider. And Jasper, world view poisoning examples, like since way before the dawning of the Rona, we had the pasteurization of health, and the allopathic assholes came out the fucking woodworks and, called homeopathic practices a bunch of quackery, and then shut down cannabis-based medicines and those types of things, right? And wow, the world's never been healthier, right? With such a healthy worldview of, how we treat sickness these days. What the fuck? It's not done by fucking needlecraft, y'all. So yeah, we see people profiting from the poisoning of worldviews that is moving markets, and pretty much taking advantage of our well-being and profiting the fuck out of it, while we're kind of making ourselves sicker and weaker and all these things. It's not good. And so we got to get out of these. We got to detox, right? Mental detox. Get that reverse osmosis. Purify the wells of and all that stuff. So yeah, there's many ways to do that. We've been talking about examples through in and throughout. There's so many interwoven connections of what we talk about on a weekly basis. So and again, it all goes back to your state of mind, right? So master that. Otherwise, someone else will do it fucking for you. It's a competition out there for that. Believe me. Actually, don't believe me. You gotta figure it out for yourself, right?
They are working on it, yeah, definitely. And yeah, I want to just add to what Nemo said. Wasn't it the fool, the only one who could tell the king the truth? So yeah, I think it's not the bad place to be the fool who can like tell a truth in a joke, and I think that is lacking in our world. Some like more ridiculing of the powers, and I think that, for example, with what was stated with a moneyless society, there are concepts like the Venus project, or like Michael Tellinger's Ubuntu, just to give some concept out that completely work without money. And I think that money in itself, for example, is worldview poisoning, a tool for it, and a tool for slavery, etc. And yeah, we can definitely do without it. I think the Russians proved it when they collapsed, because they all just like went on with their lives without getting paid, and yeah, but they adopted their own like money system back, what in my personal view was a mistake. But yeah, we can do without it, and there are concepts that are present that we could implement. And I think on to get on the point of knowledge, to be aware of the, I think, 3,500 patterns that we have filed for like over efficiency machines or 0-point energy or magnetic motors. One of them is like the Lüling motor. That it's from 1976. It's just working on magnets. Runs for 10 to 20 years without a drop of fuel and without any like pollutants. So we could like turn this place into a paradise within like month if we foot soldiers, the majority would say, okay, it's time that we stop this madness and we change some things. And there are many patterns out, like for anti-gravity. I'm aware of at least like 3 or 4 ways, and I think that like just to give it a name, Star Trek is a very good let's say basis for imagination for our near time possible future if we do it right. If we do it wrong, it's more like Starship Troopers. And yeah, I think it's there's more than enough information out there to like make someone think. And I think that one of the like healing methods for worldview poisoning is really to like let yourself daydream. Really imagine yourself in like the world after we have gone through all this trouble to change everything that has to change into, and we are living then in a like, if you so will, right world, in a paradise. And like this is very motivating if you have like, when you're stepping through dark times, just to imagine on hand of like what you know, what your informations are, and like with the patterns and so on, what could be possible at the moment. And yeah, go from there. Just let your imagination run free and keep that in your heart, and then do something. I think that's a big point that is lacking in our world as well. The right action, like really stepping into our sovereignty and deciding for ourselves what has to be done and how we gonna do it. That's for me.
Yes.
That answers Jasper's question. He wanted to know why are we talking about worldview poison, poison worldview instead of a healthy one. And I really like what you just said. Kämpfer, Alpha Wuk. Schön, sehr schön gesagt. Star Trek. I just wanted to bring a small correction, Derek. Not all life forms are sentient beings. Well, maybe check out Rudolf Steiner's work or the Rosicrucian cosmology by Heinz.
Max Heindel?
Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
you'll
I hear you, man.
grasp
Yeah,
the
kind of
difference
researching over
between
that.
different life forms. And
Sure.
something really interesting. To your point, Derek, because that was really interesting. Like this model of success we're just chasing after. And there's a nice story. I can't remember from whom it was. It sounds like American Indian somehow. And he he's like listening to this guy. Yeah, I wanna do a job that earns a lot of money. Well, what for? Well, so I can buy a big house and then a big pool, and I'll make sure I have a woman, and then a big car, and oh yeah, children, and what, and it goes on and on and on. And says, oh, sometime I can retire comfortably, and oh yeah, what are you going to do then? Oh, then I'll eventually start gardening or go fishing. Why don't you start there? The whole big loop just to go and oh, why wait to be retired? I thought it was a funny story. It's just like the idea that we have to get lost first, like collectively.
We are that. Jasper, do you want to?
Yeah, I've been mentioned a few times, so I think it's fair to respond to that. Yeah, with animism, definitely, like, it's not that everything is alive. There's a few exceptions. For example, like certain types of rocks. And also, animism doesn't have a concept of the soul per se. It just looks at nature and sees, like, oh, if a leaf falls from a tree, that's basically like our lives. Our lives are like leaves that fall off a tree and will be fertile for the soil. So I don't see ourselves inherently being bad or being good by nature. Nature is merely indifferent to us. It doesn't really require us to have a soul, because at the end of our life we're all like compost for the earth. The nature doesn't require us to be alive. It's only like in spiritual work that we develop something like a soul, and that we can continue after that. And that's also what Zoroastrianism, which is another like stream of another type of worldview, says, is that there is something like a soul, but you have to like work on it basically to be able to continue on. And they also have a concept of truth versus deception. So that's speaking to like the poisoning. Yes, that since like Derek has mentioned with the pandemic, that's a quite clear example of world poisoning. But I was just more wondering, like, until what extent I myself have been influenced unconsciously uh, by this conditioning. So I can be quite convinced that I am not poisoned anymore because I speak so clearly and convincingly about my worldview. But I think there's always like more to get out of the system, since the conditioning is so deep. And this is something that I experienced when I had a near death experience. How, like, if you have a spiritual realization, how it doesn't really get supported through to society, and that you're really far apart. So that's kind of implies how much poisoning there is. Um, that's really why I think it needs so much, and that's why it's a great topic. It needs so much more attention, because what is poisoning us personally? Like, until what extent are we aware of it? That's what I. It's not necessarily a question, as in like to furthering the topic, but it's something like as a contemplation, like until what extent are we still poisoned, and to what extent do we gain clarity. Since, like, if I interact with women, for example, they often look up to men that are very confident, but it's often not that really people promote clarity. They don't really, like, I've not noticed that like women are really looking for a man that has like quite a clear point of view of like what life is about and the kind of values he has developed over his life. But it's more like the kind of confidence that you show to approach a woman and things like that. So I think it's also not really. I think it can be worked upon more. That the right kind of values are um, are promoted, and that's also layering with like the women kind of breed us men so they can select men out. So they are actually more important in what kind of worldviews are passed on through children, since they bring up the children mostly more than men. So I also think that they have more of a crucial role in how they select men. And so if they're looking for confident men, confidence can also be stupidity. So it's not necessarily everything. If there's no clarity that comes with it, then like that's not really the right kind of person to select out. So those are some raw thoughts that I have on the matter. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, okay, so we're approaching an hour. I'm just going to say a little bit, and then we can maybe just do a wrap up. Any real quick closing thoughts? Yeah, I was going to, because obviously we've got sort of like we have like potential topics that we might cover in the future, and some of those we've kind of, which I think I've mentioned on the show before, come under the loose heading of hidden religions. And I would say that those are kind of like really, they're slightly different to worldview poisoning in my mind. I'm not entirely sure what the distinction is. I've been thinking a little bit about it. I'd say a hidden religion would be something like statism is something that's really evolved, highly evolved, and formal, systematic. Whereas something like nihilism, let's say, which I would say is another worldview poisoning, which really afflicts like younger generations. I think far more over the recent decades. It's become much more prevalent. Is something that's more free floating. It's less defined, and it's not so, it doesn't systematize life in a way. It's just this kind of almost like a virus, mind virus, thought form that kind of people slowly filters into people's view of the world. That to me is maybe more comes under the heading of worldview poisoning. Now that we're kind of focusing more on it, and just to stay on that, I think this is, it's like, in my view, I'm kind of speculating, but I feel like its meaning is a hugely important thing here. It's like, what has meaning? And obviously with nihilism, it's literally questioning of whether anything has meaning. But even with something like money, it's like, well, does something have meaning if or have value or meaning if you can't put a number on it? So it's kind of it on a fundamental level, sort of philosophical level, how we relate to the world. I think this all kind of, you're questioning it's putting a sort of cog in the works, a spanner in the works of like how we actually register value in the world and respond. How do we get meaning out of the world, and how do we turn that into meaningful action in the world? I think it's like the whole question of worldview poisoning is about interrupting the natural flow of that somehow on an energetic level in various different ways. And then, this great sort of idea that someone, Drea, my friend that's in the group, reminded me of, that I've been sort of, it's been in my mind this last week, is the question of matter. What matters, and then what matters, as in turn becomes matter, the verb to matter. If it matters to us, then it will become matter for us. And that's why imagination is the huge, it's the way out, really. We have to be willing to battle through these worldviews, these poisonous worldviews, and see something completely different and be fearless about it. There's no way forward without that. This is not the only element, but it's an essential element. Yeah, I had one more little point, but it's drifted out of my mind, so I'll leave it there. So yes, and if we've got last closing thoughts, I think we just passed an hour, so yeah, really short points to close. If anyone has one, you don't have to.
Yeah, sure. We'll let it linger until you gather that last thing you wanted to say. But yeah, imagination. really is key in like I Magi Nation and how we cultivate that within ourselves. That will help break the fear, break the limitations, and these things that are obfuscating our proper worldview on things and how we view ourselves and all these things. So I guess for encouragement for people, like what helps is going into things on a daily basis with what we intake, with open mind, open heart, using proper discernment, and taking it through the trivium, asking the question or answering the questions about whatever, who, what, where, when, why, and how, and why. Again, why not? And try to be the objective observer, even within yourselves, and like seeing what's going on, what kind of contradictions are going on, what about the cognitive dissonance that we have to overcome, and getting over the hurdles of confirmation biases as well, right? So yeah, we have to be able to like suspend what we already know, or what we think we know, what we believe, and all that stuff, to properly be able to see things more objectively, I think. So bon courage les gars, tout le monde, merci beaucoup, et puis à plus. Thank you.
I think one thing to mention is
We still have
don't be
we still
afraid
have-
of your
oh, sorry.
don't be afraid of your poisoning, to view at your poisoning. Just be aware of it, and then like give yourself good information, good food for thought, and it will wash away. That's for me.
Yeah, the suggestion of Jasper's suggestion about a healthy worldview, and also Wukan Kempa, the idea just to sit down and envision, just train your imagination. I think it's a very powerful thing. You all know about holistic biology, right? Joe Dispenza and all those guys of new biology and holistic biology.
Genetics, German new
Yeah.
medicine, put it in there, why not?
The idea of have a clear idea of your intention. So that's one clear idea, clear-minded of what you want, and then attach a higher emotion to it, as if it was already occurred, like gratitude. It sounds easy, but it's more tricky than we think. And then the action, of course, is on your side. It's not passively waiting, but it's really active projection. And so you just put those three together. It's a very good exercise, I think. Who can and I've heard about all these different type of civilizations, and we're not even the type one. I don't know how many there are. Maybe 5 or 4. That we should still start reaching for type number 1. I think it's like a self-sufficient planet, one planet in itself. So there's a pretty big marge de progrès. How do you say that? There's a lot of progress in front of us to be achieved. And thank you for all you've said. I thought very inspiring. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasper. Any last thoughts?
Not too much. I think I cannot add too many, but I also would like the next time to talk more about the healthy worldviews and what people. I don't know to what extent we are. It's already spoken about, like afterlife worldview as well. So what are people's views on like what happens after one passes away? This could also be interesting. How to what is this distinction from the next life and this one. So that's also something that I would like to talk about more, which I have more knowledge on as well and more research. But than this, but Yeah, I don't. I just had one. I mentioned like one friend of mine. He had a solipsistic worldview, and he said that he doesn't believe that truth exists. And I said, well, you call that truth, so you're already contradicting yourself. So that happened, and this guy was really struggling through depression and like had a difficult period in his life, and it was just this way of making sense of what he was going through, just completely isolated, and nobody knew what he went through. But it's always the case in suffering, is that you think you're the only one, but many people have things that they're going through. So that's what I feel like I should add to what I've said before. And also thank you guys for what you've said, and yeah, I hope to continue on speaking more, getting into the groove.
Great. All right, thanks everyone. Yeah, I did remember what my point was, so I was going to quickly say it. It was about the question that I find in the natural law movement, that for me, because we were talking about how you get to a certain point, or I think Jasper was saying you never know how much you don't know. I suppose that's how someone else put it. You know, you think you have the world, you think you've stripped away all the veils, but maybe not. And so I have this question about property at the moment. You know, property and I'm sort of like, I keep prodding the people in the natural law movement about it, going, is this, what do we really think about property, and trying to get people, get clarity around it. Because, you know, just to return to this thing of lack, you know, that, like, to me, like, it's like we have this huge blind spot around property, because we're in this huge world with so much abundance, and we're all like scraping around trying to like just earn enough money to have our tiny little box that we can inhabit, you know. And it's like, to me, that's such a fundamental kind of in your face kind of sign that our worldview is poisoned, because that's not right, you know. It's just such a wrong way to be, so obviously. And yet we kind of inhabit that small world. We can't kind of break out of it, and, you know, we're not breaking out of it, and it's very difficult. So anyway, that's something that I'm kind of like working with at the moment, is really trying to look at my beliefs around that and question other people's beliefs, you know, even in this kind of very awake, open-minded, whatever it is, kind of movement. You know, that's something that I'm interested in at the moment. And yeah, just to finish, idealism, you know, like it doesn't matter if it's what matters is what's right, you know, that is what's moral. That's what matters. It doesn't matter if it can't happen now, you know. It's like the tendency, the ego or the intellect always wants to say, yeah, but what will happen about this? Who will build the roads? Oh, but, you know, what about children? Oh, what about the you know, all of these what ifs. And you know, it's like, yeah, we're in an insane world. We have to envisage a world that's not insane, and then all of these what ifs become tiny little problems, you know, in that world, you know. So it's like, yeah. Sorry, there's a little bit of a rant at the end there, but I suddenly thought of all these things. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Thanks to everyone that's you know, chatting with us during the week on the Telegram chat. Come and join. The links are in the description to join us there. You know, very few people do, but I am going to keep saying it. Subscribe, like, share, all of that. Grow the channel, you know. Maybe it will make a difference. Maybe more people will hear this. You know, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think this was like the thing to be talking about, you know, to be sharing with people. So, you know, please, if you think you can help, even just going and hitting that, smashing that like button, you know, it does make a little difference. It does make a tiny bit of difference that someone's going to like it or dislike it. You know, dislike's great. It's all it all adds to the algorithm. Anyway, I won't go on too much. Thank you guys, and see you next time on Europa Natural Law. Cheers.